Today, we're going to talk about a story that starts with something you probably have in your kitchen right now and ends on a whole different continent. It's all about a simple, everyday product, tomato paste. But its journey from a farm to a can has created this massive economic puzzle that's literally shut down factories and completely changed people's lives. So let's peel back the layers on this one. It's pretty wild.
Okay, so it all kicks off with a question that just doesn't seem to make any sense. Think about a place like Nigeria. It's one of Africa's top tomato producers. The climate is perfect. They can grow them all year round. Logically, they should be swimming in tomato paste, right? Well, that's where the story gets really weird.
Yeah, they actually import it. We're talking thousands and thousands of tons of the stuff, mostly from places like Italy and China. So how on earth can a country that grows so many tomatoes not be able to process its own? You know, this isn't just some random trivia fact. It's a huge sign of a much deeper problem. And that problem is perfectly captured by this one kind of haunting image.
This quote from Reuters really gets to the heart of the mystery. An expensive, totally modern factory built to solve this exact issue is just sitting there, empty. A ghost factory. To figure out why, we actually have to look thousands of miles away, over in Europe.
See, this whole thing doesn't start on an African farm. It starts in the government buildings in Brussels. Turns out, European Union policy creates this huge, and a lot of people would say unfair, advantage that sends ripples all the way across the globe. And the key to this whole advantage? It's money. Specifically, something called a subsidy.
So, at the very core of this are agricultural subsidies. Now, to put it simply, this is just money that the government gives to its farmers. The main goal is to keep their own food supply nice and stable and, affordable for their own people. But the side effects of this policy are just enormous, especially when you see the numbers we're talking about here. 55 billion euros every single year. I mean, that is just a staggering amount of money being poured into supporting European agriculture. And this huge financial cushion means that European producers get to play by a completely different set of economic rules than their competitors anywhere else.
And here's what that money actually does. These subsidies mean European companies can make tomato paste for way, way less. And that creates a flood of artificially cheap paste on the global market. They can even sell it for less than it costs to make, which is a practice called dumping, and they still turn a profit because the government is making up the difference. So how can a local farmer in Nigeria possibly compete with that? It just creates an impossible situation on the ground in West Africa.
Okay, so now let's jump back over to West Africa. Because look, it's one thing to have to compete with a subsidized global giant. It's a whole other thing when you're also just fighting a battle to get your own crop from the field to a factory in the first place. As it turns out, just being good at growing tomatoes is nowhere near enough.
This chart right here is it's mind-blowing. Just look at that huge slice for wasted. Almost half, 45% of Nigeria's entire tomato harvest is just lost. It rots before anyone can eat it or process it. That is millions of tons of food, of potential income, just vanishing into thin air. So why? What is causing all this waste?
Well, the challenges are just everywhere. The roads are so bad that trucks break down, the delicate tomatoes get crushed on the journey. You don't have reliable electricity, so you can't have cold storage, which means the fruit just spoils in the heat. Farmers can't get loans for better equipment. And, to top it all off, there's a devastating pest some people call the tomato Ebola that can wipe out an entire farm basically overnight. So you've got these two massive forces on a collision course.
And this is where we come back to our ghost factory. See, back in 2016, Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, he decided he was going to tackle this problem head-on. He made a huge investment that was supposed to be a total game-changer for Nigerian agriculture.
And this wasn't just any old factory. It was a symbol of hope, a state-of-the-art plant designed to process 1,200 tons of tomatoes a day and make Nigeria totally self-sufficient. The plan was for it to buy from thousands of local farmers, creating this thriving local economy. But it ran smack into a wall of pure economic reality.
This simple chart really shows the impossible choice everyone was facing. That subsidized Italian paste lands in the market at a price that the local product, which is weighed down by all those infrastructure and farming costs we just talked about, it just can't compete. And the Dangote factory couldn't escape that basic math.
So, the factory got caught in a perfect storm. It couldn't get a consistent supply of good tomatoes because of all those harvest problems. But at the same time, it couldn't afford to pay farmers a high price for their crops because it had to somehow compete with that ultra-cheap imported stuff. So, after starting and stopping over and over again, it just fell silent. It became the ghost factory.
But look, this isn't just a story about economics and factories. When a system like this breaks down, real people are the ones who pay the price, and that price is so much higher than what you see on a sticker in a grocery store.
I mean, think about it. When you can no longer sell the one crop you know how to grow, your entire livelihood just disappears. For countless farming families, this isn't some abstract trade debate. It is a direct threat to their ability to feed their kids and stay on their land. And what happens next is the final and most tragic twist in this whole story. This right here is the tragic irony at the very heart of this issue. Because they can't make a living farming tomatoes at home, thanks to cheap imports from Italy, many young men from West Africa take on this incredibly dangerous journey to get to Italy. And when they get there, they often end up picking the very same tomatoes that will be processed, canned, and shipped back to their home countries, undercutting the next generation of farmers all over again.
This quote, it really just says it all. People risk their lives crossing deserts and seas, they face exploitation and total uncertainty, all because of a global trade imbalance that starts with something as simple as a tomato. It's a desperate journey, and it's fueled by a system that has completely pushed them out of their own market.
So the next time you see a can of tomato paste on the shelf, it's worth asking, what's the real story behind this price? We've seen that behind this simple product lies a really complex web of global economics. European subsidies create a huge imbalance, making it impossible for local West African industries to even get off the ground. And that leads to failed factories, to lost livelihoods, and ultimately to this tragic migration where farmers are forced to follow the supply chain in reverse. The real cost, it turns out, is often hidden, and it's measured not in cents, but in futures.